Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the 5 nominees for Outstanding Director of a Feature Film by the Directors Guild of America. As we get set up here and mic'd in, you may wonder why there's a special chair. Well, there's always a mystery in filmmaking, so we may keep it a mystery. And as we get wired, first of all, I'm honored to be with these 5 amazing filmmakers. And I was thinking earlier, I wonder if there's anything in common about all 5 films. 2 of your films have Alec Baldwin in it, so that's one thing. 3 of your films actually have a scene with shooting ranges in it. That's also true. But and 2 of your films actually have an actor who put on a lot of weight. That's also true. But actually, of course, these individual movies are incredibly different because each of you is a different artist expressing yourselves so powerfully to all of us. And this morning I was looking at something that the painter Henri Matisse said, which was creativity takes courage. And what's real clear to all of us is the courage you all have in making the movies you've made for all of us. So I thank you. And this is an audience of your peers. This is an audience of directors and directorial team who want to know process. Now, I know you've been all asked the same questions about your films 100 times over the last months. Hopefully, we'll be able to delve a little bit more into the directorial process as distinguished from just the standard questions, and we'll see. In fact, one of the things that occurred to me just even watching these clips is homework. I'm interested in what you do the night before you're about to shoot a scene. And Bradley, I'm going to start with you since we see this scene. I don't know how many days that particular scene took, but what's your homework? What do you do?
Homework or the night before? The hope is I did my homework before the night before. What? Otherwise, I'm screwed.
Tell us both parts. And particularly the night before.
The night before, well, for that particular scene, I think it was really trying to figure out what moment that I was going to be able to capture the geography of her starting all the way far away, and then how we're going to capture this sort of seduction that she does of him, really. And I remember Maddie and I talking about it. Maddie Lebatique, a wonderful cinematographer I got to work with. But really, I think I just tried to get some sleep. And then come, but I didn't really, it felt like there was no night before. It felt like it was just 42 days of shooting. And you just sort of take a respite in between days. But it really felt like one full swath of a shoot.
Do you do, actually, literally though, do you do any homework? Like, are you going to read that scene to yourself? Are you going to look at whatever material you have? Or do you actually say, I want to be on the set and make those decisions?
Oh no, we made those decisions before, but at the same time, always being open once I get there. I mean, that's the one thing that I learned that I hope to take to the next movie is to really embrace whatever inspiration comes on the day. And if I'm in this room and I see something else, be able to pivot at an instant, and hopefully myself and the crew have the acumen to be able to be that fluid.
Do you dream about the film?
Oh, all the time.
And will those dreams influence what you're going to shoot?
100%. Yeah, his whole death was during a meditation. I saw the whole thing because I had written his death to be different, but I never felt comfortable with it. And then I actually asked Toby Emmerich to come to my house, and I showed him the rehab scene. And I said, "Listen, he can't die the way that I've written it and scouted it and everything and boarded. He's got to die this way." And I took him through the whole shot for shot, and it all just came out of a meditation. I know that's odd, but yeah.
I'm not sure, Peter, if you meditate, but thank you for telling us this. What is the night before? For example, this scene, what we just saw, yeah. I don't know how many days it took, but what's your preparation the night before? Is there?
I read the sides the night before I go to bed, but I agree with that. You better be prepared by the night before. You got everything in order, but right before I go to bed, I read my sides. They put them under my door every night. The sides, of course, being the pages that you're going to be shooting the next day. And I just think about them and just get my head around where we're going, and then I try to get a really good night's sleep. And by the way, I do occasionally meditate. I started about 4 years ago, and I used to have to drive cross country to be able to get into that kind of state where I could really have some clarity. And someone told me, well, or you can meditate for 20 minutes. And I found it really helps. It really does. It clears all the stuff, all the little things that are popping into your head. You pop them all out, and all of a sudden you have some sort of clarity about the scene that you're doing. And I try to do that every day.
And as you're looking at that scene, for example, the one that you slipped under your pillow, the kind of thoughts that are going on in your mind now, are they about shots that you're about to do? Are they about directing your actors and their performance? Are they all of this? What kind of stuff is happening as you're reading those sides?
I guess I'm thinking about what could be the issues for tomorrow. What are the tricky little things? Because some of them are just two guys sitting at a table talking, and I know what's going on there. But then I'm thinking, we've gone through, we've done a shot list and we've done all that stuff. But then if it's getting, I'm thinking, how is this really going to work tomorrow? The actual shots. Where are we going to put that camera? One of the issues that I had is that a lot of this movie takes place in a car. And we were very concerned with boring the audience. Every time you pop in, oh my God, we're back in this car again, And so we really mapped out the car scenes quite a bit. Sean Porter is my DP, unbelievable. I highly recommend him. And he did such a good job mapping it out. We mapped out every car scene. We had all of our angles worked out so that you would have 3 or 4 car scenes before you get back to that other angle. Because to be honest, there's not a lot of angles in a car. Unless you want to go Orson Welles, come through the ceiling or up through the floor, and that's not me. But so we had to really map it out well, and we also we used the mini Alexa, and we were able to get 3 cameras crammed into the car.
3.
Yeah. And so I was thinking that kind of stuff, make sure we have those cameras in the right place. Story-wise, I knew where we were by the night before.
There's a particular shot in the sequence that we just saw where we see Tony and he wipes after he's grabbed the guys and had the punch. And I'm curious whether that's the kind of stuff that you've thought beforehand, or are you walking onto the set and working through that? How did that shot work?
Well, I actually struggled about what to show today, what scene, because I wanted to show a scene with Mahershala in it too, but that's 2 guys sitting at a table for the most part, and I didn't think that would, as a Directors Guild thing, you would be too impressed. So that was one of the most complicated movement scenes in the movie, and even though that's the very opening of the movie, that was something that we had to think a lot about, and also I had to avoid things like, what's been done before, like in Goodfellas, they had the Copacabana, and I didn't want that, So we have to kind of create our own Copacabana. That is exactly how it looked, but I didn't want to do the shots that Scorsese's done before, and yet I wanted to feel, that 1962 Copacabana feeling. So yeah, that's why I showed that.
Got it. Adam, the Essential Tremor is here. The reason for this chair is, as Adam will explain possibly,
this is actually the chair that Akira Kurosawa died in. And I bought it for $800,000 at auction, and it's the only chair I will sit in. No, I have essential tremor, so I get a little shaky, so I have a high back. That's all. Totally harmless. Totally harmless.
Homework.
Much better story about Kurosawa.
Exactly.
I wish I was a liar. But,
Homework. What would, for example, the scene we just seen between Bush and Cheney?
That was a big scene. It wasn't third act high drama, but it was a really difficult scene for us because you had 3 things that we were juggling. Number one, first and foremost, was the makeup. And this was the closest we were going to go in on the makeup. It was always the scene where we were going to go very tight on Cheney. And I was lucky to have Greg Canham as my makeup artist, who's won all kinds of awards, and it is incredible. So the makeup held up. That was the big thing. I was checking with my DP, Greg Fraser. These guys are both praising their DPs. Don't hire Greg Fraser. He's terrible. No, I can only make that joke because you guys know he's one of the best in the business. He's amazing, super critical eye. So that was my first thing. I was like, how's the makeup? Is it holding up? We were looking through the IP. We're like, all right, it's holding up. Second thing was wood. We had chosen this very wooden, deep, rich wooden office, and we wanted it to have that stark relief to it. And I was always like, do we go too far? So we were checking that as well. But the trickiest thing was the fact that a lot of the lines, and we were talking about this in this scene, are from actual history. George W. Bush actually did say, I ran because I mostly wanted to be commissioner of baseball. A lot of the lines, wartime presidents are popular, were taken from the actual record and actual quotes. So for me, going into a lot of these scenes, I like to improvise and play around. I have to know the areas where I can't mess around and then the areas where I can. And so there was a lot of conversation with Sam and with Christian beforehand about here's where you've got room, here's where you don't have room. And so the thing about the burnt ends and the ribs was all Sam Rockwell improv that we kicked around with his assistant, and we're like, all right, I think you got room to do this. And then Sam said burnt ends, and I was, of course, was on the floor. But those were the three things that we were really thinking about coming into it.
And the evening before whatever you're about to shoot, what do you do?
The evening before is, yes, you go through the scene, you read through the scene a couple times. I mean, I have the advantage of having written the scene, so I've lived with it for quite a while, which helps a lot. But as far as the night before, it was, I think I checked in again with Greg Canham. I'm like, how's that makeup feeling? And Greg Fraser and I had already talked about the way we were gonna shoot it and already scouted it, so we knew all of that. And then I just read through it, especially on this movie, to see what's fact and where we can play with characters. So nothing too crazy, because like these guys were saying, you've done tremendous amounts of prep. But for this one, it was mainly the fact versus the character room that we had.
Got it. Thank you. Alfonso, this is quite an amazing shot. I think all of us are astounded by it. And in preparation for that shot, and also the evening before you knew you were going to do that shot, what goes on in your process?
Well, preparation. My background is as a first AD. I did many films as a first AD. And so I always knew that, you have to be as prepared as possible just for whatever is going to happen. This film was a little bit different in the sense that I would have prepared to have all the elements to allow a lot of unknown. And the thing is, with Guillermo del Toro and Alejandro González Iñárritu, we have this conversation with this theory of the evil killer. The evil killer is that when an idea for a film manifests, together with the idea, an evil killer is manifested. And you have to keep him at bay. The moment that it's manifested, it starts to roam around. And you start working, you start prepping, and very casually, the evil killer starts coming very closely to you. The worst moments are the moments in which you do something great, and you feel happy about your work, and in that moment, you have the evil killer in your neck. And is this the thing, is that what happens the night before is just looking under the bed and the closets to see where the evil killer is. That's the dread of the process, is that there's so much stuff that can go wrong. So much stuff that can go wrong that is in your hands. So much stuff is not in your hands. And those are the miracles, because those stuff that is not in your hand, the evil killer becomes this amazing ballerina, in which you improvise an amazing dance, But what I'm talking is about outside situations that come to you and you take advantage of them. The worst are the ones in which we're up to you and you didn't keep him at bay. And that is disaster, in my experience. So in this scene in particular, we have to build the whole pier that went from the palapa, the shade, all the way to deep into the water. We had techno crane on top. We got from the LA two amazing techno operators. I don't know if you know Mango, is awesome, And And so we did but the problem is that we had to set up the crane. The pier was built, and we had to set up that crane the night before, the tracks and stuff, the day before, 2 days before. And the day before, there was a tropical storm. And those are the unknowns. Those are, So, and it weakened the whole structure. Thinking about the evil killer, before we had predicted a lot of stuff. We had foremost safety. We were going to have people in the ocean, and we have kids. We had Yalitza that she didn't tell us that she didn't know how to swim. But at that point, she was an actress, so she said she could swim. So we had all these. In the shot, we have to raise a lot of the lifeguards that were around the kids and stuff. But what we could not predict was that thing of the structure of the pier that was, and it was very difficult to build that pier because it's a protected area. So you had limitations of how much you could dig into the thing. Anyway, the problem was that as we start shooting, the crane, because everything was off of balance now, the crane kept on derailing. It was one of those things in which, we could not get any take. I had predicted that I wanted my good take at one point of the afternoon, right, where the light was right. But by that point, I said, well, let's have 6 or 7 takes before that, so we can use the good one. And nothing happened. It kept on derailing like maybe 40 seconds into the shot. And it was not until that moment in which the rail decided to behave, and we achieved the shot. And we could not keep on shooting because we were concerned about safety again, about the structure of the pier, and we have to wrap. We could not go back because anyway the pier didn't work anymore, and the crew was already flying back to Mexico City, and I had said before I'm going to board them, but I was really depressed that night.
The night after?
After shooting that, because as a director you only get one when you're expecting to have 6. You think it's crap, and you're afraid that you're watching and says, well, we have to live with it, And I even watched it that night, and I said, okay, this doesn't really work, but there's no choice. We cannot afford to stay here, build a pier again, and all of that stuff.
What were you finding when you watched it that night that didn't work for you?
It's directorial stupid things of that. That you create misconceptions. And those misconceptions are part of the evil killer, by the way. And it was not until the cutting room with Adam that he calls me one day. I say, yeah, I saw the shot. And I said, yes, I know. He says, no, it's amazing. And I says, no, Adam, it's crap. And I was like, I was started shooting, and I was getting like, no, Adam, And it was not really until he says, no, I have to show it to you, that I recognized that there was some value in the shot, But yeah, what goes at night before is the evil killer.
At least you identified him. He's got a name, so he's not going to totally take you over.
Yeah, but sometimes you get too complacent and,
I do.
Yeah.
In evening before, for you, how do you prepare? I think you should be, that one or the one you've gotten.
There are 2 scenes here. The script ends with my signature shot, the double dolly going down the hallway, and we cut to the Klan and we see the ceremony. I was in Martha's Vineyard, Oaks Bluff. I'm watching CNN. It was August 10th or 11th. And I did not see what happened Friday night, as David Chappelle calls the tiki torch motherfuckers. And I could not believe my eyes. So I went outside, and my house was on the golf course. I don't play golf, but I'm in Farm Neck. And Obama, I knew was there. So I could see the Secret Service guys in the trees and shit, trying to hide. So I knew he was coming. So I went up to him and said, "You hear about what happened in Charlottesville?" He said, "Spike, I'm on the golf course." You know, I turned the phone off. So he hadn't heard. He hadn't heard. It's the 18th hole. So then I knew that this, what I just saw, would be the coda for the film. And, but there was one thing I had to get the blessing of Susan Bro. It was her daughter, Heather Hare, was murdered in a homegrown act of American terrorism. And I have a great, great researcher. Her name is Judy Ailey. And so with her and my great, great editor, Barry Brown, who finally got a nomination after cutting Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X, Inside Man. He's really, first time he cut for me was School Days, 1988. And I saw that footage of the President of the United States of America, I don't call him by his name, who refused to refute hatred, refused to refute neo-Nazi motherfuckers, the KKK, and alt-right. What we didn't know was that motherfucker David Duke was there. So that was the prize. We did not know, because the whole film you see Topher, great performance of David Duke, and then the real motherfucker shows up. So I called Mrs. Bro and gave her my condolences as best as I could. And I asked her, could I please, we never see her body being hit. I wanted to use her daughter's photographs. And she's seen a couple of my films and so I said, "I trust you, Spike." So
I want to talk about two parts of that.
So we put it in, but I knew that had to be the ending, because all throughout the film, my co-writer, Cameron Wilmot, and I, we're trying to connect the past to the present. So this is just like another emphasis that this same bullshit is happening today. And
in your process here, particularly, I mean, the double dolly shot, how did that ever evolve for you? And what do you tell, and really seriously, what do you tell your actors in terms of, for example, using it here?
For this use of the double dolly shot, John David was asking me every day, when's it gonna come? He said, "We have a double dolly shot?" And so I didn't tell him we were gonna do it, but he was on the set, so he saw we were building this long hallway, so he knew what it was. Ernest Dickerson, very important in my development as a filmmaker. He went to Howard, I went to Morehouse, both historically black schools. We came into NYU Graduate Film School the fall of 1979. Ang Lee was in our class too. Our class was a motherfucker. Wow. And on Mo Better Blues, I did it, and we were just still in our film school geek phase, and finally Ernest and I said, look, if we're gonna use this shot, we just can't be using it. We're gonna have to be a purpose. So the first time we did that was in Malcolm X. Denzel was on a double-eye shot, and the song, the great Sam Cooke song, "A Change Is Gonna Come."
How do you set the shot up? How is it set?
You put the camera on the dolly,
Yep.
and you move.
Well, where's the actor? Where's the actor?
Sitting on an apple box. But the reason why I chose to use a double dolly shot there is because in the late great Dr. Betty Shabazz, Malcolm's ex's widow, told me that she thought that her husband knew he was going to be assassinated that day at the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem, and that he wanted to become a martyr. So when she told me that, I knew then that's where I had to use the double dolly shot. We did it. Another time was good time. It was in the 25th hour. My brother, late Philip Seymour Hoffman, has just kissed his student in the club, and like he fucked up. So then we have another.
Did you know you were going to use that shot? Because you just said John David found out. Well, now there's a whole.
Oh yeah, it had to go there.
And you knew, but did you know in the process of your thinking, oh, this is going to be my ending? This is before you got the documentary.
Yes, because this shot's going to take us out through the window to a cross burning.
The issue of Dutch angles, which you use, cross burning
We
in
don't
other
use
places.
that term Dutch.
What
Or
are you-
Chinese angles, we don't do that.
What are we calling them?
There's certain terminology you can't use on the set today, and Dutch and Chinese and call get the Run DMC. We don't.
So how are you describing it to your people, to working with?
Tilted.
And your choice of doing it. Your choice of doing it.
Yes.
When did that enter your process of? Particularly with the scenes with David Duke. Those.
It's off kilter. We did that and Do the Right Thing too. I mean, that's not. That's.
I know.
I mean, I didn't invent that shit. I mean, that's standard.
But the
so
reason to choose it. That's what I'm looking at.
you have the this interaction between the Grand Wizard, who thinks he's talking to a fellow
Clanner.
clan brother. But we use a lot of stuff. I mean, this film, we wanted to look like a lot of the great films of the 70s I watched growing up. Serpico, Dog Day Afternoon, stuff like that. So we had the split screens and stuff like that. So we wanted to evoke that era. That's why we shot it on film. 35 millimeter, a great young DP, his name is Chaz Irwin, and we said we're going to shoot this as film digital. For this, it's too clean for me, especially for a period piece. So we wanted to have that grit, and that's what we did.
And for you, the night before you're going to shoot a scene, what happens with you?
Sleep.
Any reference? Any preparation?
You got to do. I mean, I think everybody said here already. That preparation's done. I mean, like, you think that the hated Patriots and Rams are preparing? I mean, they've done all. Boston, New York don't get along. Preparation's done. You got to play the game.
Yep.
And also, do you dream? And if you dream about the film, does it happen? And does it change what you might do? Or is that not where you are?
I'm dreaming about, what I mean, first of all, I know what's the weather gonna be like tomorrow. Key. Or you have to go to the cover set. So it's so much stuff is just like not have even to do with the filmmaking, just the getting stuff done.
Got it. I was going to ask all of you a question about later, but I'm going to ask it right now. What do you do when you're anxious? What do you do when you feel the pressure? How do you handle it?
In work or in life?
Both. I know I generalized it too much. We'll concentrate on the directing process. When you feel the pressure or anxiety, what do you do? How do you handle?
Yeah, the minute you said that, I thought initially of that scene that I showed you this morning, which was pretty intense. We had a lot of people. We had one day to shoot it, and we had a lot to shoot that day. And I remember there were a couple moments, as an actor, I've been in the hole. I call it like the hole, right? You're in the hole and you're like, oh my, and everything just sort of comes in on you. And I've been lucky to be with directors that I felt like I was in the hole with them. So we worked it out, we excavated how, you find that in the editing room, you find that when you're writing the script. But there's something about finding yourself on the set when that happens, because there's all these other people that the pressure is sort of amplified. I remember I wanted to do a smooth shot of watching him watch her. And because of the timing, and we were running out of time that day, it was hard to lay down the wood in order to do the dolly. So I remember thinking, okay, I have a half hour. Her voice is going, and I want her to sing it again. All the different things, like you said, Spike, the logistics of actually getting what you want. And also that day, they were talking, money was always an issue. And I remember I kept hearing, I don't know if you get paranoid when you're directing. I hear this chatter about we're over today, we're over. And I remember I just got everybody together and I just said, Shelley Ziegler, first AD who I love. And I just said, guys, you got to stop. Just please don't be in this room. Just please don't talk about it right here. I cannot focus. I'm trying to figure out how to tell this story that is so vital, this moment in the movie. Because we had killed it up to then. Blue and red. Blue is Jackson. I love the blue. He comes in, he's entered into this red realm. And Karen Murphy, the production designer, killed it. She transformed that bar, the Virgil, with all the mirrors and the thing. And Shangela and Will and we, the real deal. All these people would have a tremendous amount of energy, all the performers. So there's all this energy. And I remember feeling like I was in a hole. And I just thought in that moment, I've been in holes before. And I think that the more holes you get into, the more of those moments that you get through and you survive and you don't die. The worst one was a play. I remember I couldn't eat. I lost 18 pounds rehearsing for this play, and I thought, it'll never be that bad. David O. Russell and I we were in some holes on Silver Linings Playbook, and we made it through. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make it through. So I guess I just kind of quiet down. I talk even a little slower, just, okay, can everybody just go out? And then you just try to really just center. That's the thing about Clint Eastwood. Never gets in a hole ever. Unforgiven, it snows. He goes, yeah, just shoot. Well, we'll just shoot. It doesn't matter. The guy's, that was the thing I learned in American Sniper. That guy doesn't sweat anything. Yeah.
I like that idea of slowing down.
Yeah, just slow down. Let's get simple. Let's just get simple.
Peter, for you, do you ever feel, and when you feel, well, how do you handle it? Pressure.
I have to say, in life I feel more than I do on a set because I'm not alone on a set. That's the thing. I remember when I did my first movie, some idiot friend of mine gave me the advice. He said, you know what you got to do first day? Have a plant in there who says something that gets you mad, you fire him on the spot, and let him know you're boss. Jesus. Yeah. Swear to God. I was like, seriously? First day, I'm going to be firing somebody in front? Why would I do that? I want them to like me. I want them to be rooting for me. We're a team. And in fact, I do the exact opposite. I start every movie on the very first day before we shot a thing, and I say, hey, listen, this is a team effort. I get up right before I say, if anybody has any ideas, I mean anybody back in Transpo or, anybody, wherever you are, here in makeup, anybody has an idea, please come to me. Please tell me, because I don't know it all. And we're a team, and we got to do that. And they do. People come forward. And, 9 out of 10 times it's something I've thought of or rejected or whatever. But 1 out of 10 times it's like, oh, that's a great idea. That's amazing. And I stand up, I say, hey, Sally from, the hair department had a great idea. This is what we're going to do. And I give her the credit, and I make it a team effort. That's what it should feel like. Everybody should feel like, they're part of this thing. It's not just me directing a movie and them being my little, slaves. It's not that way at all. So the pressure is thinned out for me because if I am confused, I just talk. Hey, what do you think? I'll talk to the actors. I'll talk to my first AD, J.B. Rogers, who's a genius. Talk to my DP, my brother, wherever. There's a lot of people that I can turn to. And so I don't really get, I honestly, I don't really get, my first movie I did, Dumb and Dumber, which I was a wreck the whole time I was making it because I thought I was going to get fired every day. But since then, I just, I don't get that stressed out on it.
And when the time pressure happens, what happens for you?
We move. I've never been over budget, never been over days. We're always behind the first couple weeks. You're just getting the ball going, rolling, and you're falling behind. You're like a half day behind after 5 days, and but we always catch up. And what I found out is it's like, you'll do what this movie we made in 35 days. That was the shortest shoot I ever had. I normally have about 40 to 45, and I've had 50. I thought, how are we going to do this in 35? It was a breeze. And I think if they said 25, we could have done it in 25. You do what what you have. You plan it. Your first AD, J.B. Rogers, again, genius. He just maps it out, schedules it perfectly. And in fact, we usually come in a day or two under and under budget. So we move. And that, again, that's about all the preparation you did before, where you know what you're going to do, the performances. But it's also truth that when you get there that day, you think you know it all, but you don't. You think, like, this always amazes me. I have people send me scripts and they say, hey, read the script. It's not really there yet, but tell me what you think. I'm thinking, really? Why would you send me a script that's not really there yet? Like, why not wait till you think it's there and can't get better? And then I'll look at it and see what's not right, because I'm not going back to it again. And that's how I feel like when I make a movie. I think it's 100%, and I think I think it's perfect, but I know it's not. But I can't see a flaw until you're shooting, and then you get on the day and you realize this isn't working, this scene, and so that's where you're working on your feet and trying to wing it and finding stuff, and you have to be a creative director and come up with stuff. But it's just. I guess I'm saying I don't get that stressed when we're doing it. But I have a good team, and everybody's, we're all on the same team, and that's why I'm not one guy. I have a whole team that's like blocking for me and doing everything. So you're not out there alone.
Gotcha. Well said. Adam, for you, when pressure happens, how do you handle it?
Well, this movie was very unusual in the sense that we had, I'd been working on the script, we went into pre-production, and then in 2016, the whole country changed. So we thought we were looking at a period of 8 years in American history that were really extreme and horrifying and dark. And then reality caught up with us while we were shooting and actually went past us in some ways. And so there was a type of anxiety on this set that I've never experienced before. And I remember the day that giant tax bill, the Moab tax bill was passed, which was just a shotgun blast to the stomach of our country. I remember the day that was passed. And there were elements in it that were like in the scene that we were shooting, like the death tax, the estate tax. That day we were shooting that, and then it was passed, and this kept happening during the movie. It happened a dozen times, 15 times, that it's kind of the opposite of what Peter was saying. The crew would come up to me and go, Adam, unitary executive theory, they're using that to do this. And I had to tell the crew, stop coming up to me and telling me how the screwed up world is intersecting. It's stressing me out too much. So, and as far as how I handled the stress, I would say very, very poorly. I'm one of those really bright guys who kept smoking throughout his whole adult life, and I had a heart attack. So that's true. The reason I can laugh about it is I got very, very lucky. I identified it quickly thanks to Christian Bale, who in shooting the scenes that we had heart attacks in, described to me all the different ways you can tell that a heart attack comes. And one of them is a queasy stomach. Second I had the queasy stomach, I went to the hospital and the doctor said, you got in here so fast, there's no damage done. You have a very strong heart. So I'm perfectly okay, and I stopped smoking, thank God. Wow. Yes. Cool. They were fun years, those smoking years, but man, it was.
Sometimes I like to ask the question: did a movie you made, did it ever change you? Well, clearly. So deal a little more with the pressure and the anxiety when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, I agree with Peter. I mean, I think the movie set is one of the most wonderful places in the world. You have, how often do you see anywhere between 40 and 100 people working in concert with each other about some idea that's floating in the air that we're not even sure of? I actually, usually when I'm finished a movie, I get a little depressed because it's such a magical experience. and everyone's so great that you're working with and so talented. You're getting the best of the best, and they're people you connect with. But yeah, with this movie, I had a heart attack.
One more quick, but time. When the time pressure happens.
Time doesn't bother me. Time is never an issue. I'm pretty good with that. And same thing. You know what money you have. You know what schedule you have. We've always come in under budget. We're always on schedule. You plan your day. I have a great AD that I've done pretty much every movie with, Matt Rebenkoff, and we just plan our days. We know what they are. You have amazing actors. You have an amazing... Greg Fraser's a freak. I mean, the guy's just a brilliant photographer who also moves fast. Seems like the best always do, right? They know what they want pretty quickly. And so, yeah, time isn't really an issue. And we play a game with hot costs. We actually treat it like it's gambling. So my line producer and I, at the end of every day, we predict the hot costs. And we kept score throughout the entire movie, who was closest. And I almost beat him. The final score was like, I can't remember, like 28 to like 22 or something like that. So,
And what were some of the hot costs?
What's that?
What were some of those hot costs?
Well, you know how it is. You go into the OT and you've got the extras, and they come up to you and go, do you want to go into OT with the extras? And like, I think we have to today. And then other days you get done an hour and a half early, and immediately I'm like, how are the hot costs? You know. And also you're thinking about how you want to use that money in post. That's the big thing for me with hot costs. We had an amazing composer on this movie, Nicholas Bertel, who we wanted to get him a full orchestra in London. So the entire movie, I kept texting Nick going, I think we're gonna get you that orchestra. So it's all trade-off. That part of it, and you know, after having done this for a while, doesn't bother me too much. In this case, it was this emotional thing of seeing the country become a pornographic clown show.
By the way,
All due respect to both political sides.
I'm wondering now, because improv is part of some of your style, whether the puppet, I'm not going to actually use the language, but the puppet and the putting on the little miniature hats on the puppet, did that come from as an improv in that particular?
That actually was, yes. That was, there's a scene in the movie where we're showing how one of Dick Cheney's superpowers is he can make the most preposterous, radical, dangerous ideas seem professional and comforting. And there was originally the scripted line, I'm trying to remember what it was, oh, let's all go out onto the White House lawn, take our pants off, and just run around with our private parts blowing in the breeze. I used a different word. But, and then, of course, on the day, I had to throw out a couple more, and the one that's in the movie was improvised. But no one on the planet breaks harder than Christian Bale, which you would not think. Like, literally, when he breaks, it's like out of like a 1920s comedy. Like, he spits out, he's like, whoa! And you're like, one of the most committed actors on planet Earth. Like, the guy who's so inside his character, and when he breaks, he just explodes in this cartoonish way. So
how do you pull him back so he can actually do that line?
I use a microphone. I don't yell in a commanding, annoying way. I do kind of smooth jazz voice on my microphone. And I just say, everyone, like, keep rolling, keep rolling. Take a beat, Christian, take a beat. Christian, take your own cue. And then he kept laughing, and I go, okay, cut. Yeah, but I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, with this story, there weren't a lot of like laughing improv moments like that. It's a pretty dark story in a lot of ways, so it wasn't too common. But that, good eye, that was definitely an improvised moment.
It was a great moment too. Alfonso, same issue. I mean, you did already sort of answer our question in terms of the pressure, because you've got that killer guy going around.
That he doesn't leave. I mean, he keeps on going to the cutting room and stuff, but in the cutting room, at least, you can sort of control him. No, that's the thing. I mean, in terms of the procedure, I know the whole thing of the logistics and stuff. You just know that you're going to get through. You know, I feel confident that somehow you're going to get through. For me, the anxiety and the stress has to do more from the creative standpoint. Making sure that what I'm doing and every moment that I'm doing, every scene that I'm doing, is conveying all the thematic elements of the film, one way or the other. in sometimes in subtle ways or not subtle ways. And that is the part that I could get a bit more anxious.
I'm wanting a specific example. I'm wondering whether that scene, there's an amazing sequence which they're in, I guess, the furniture store about to buy a crib. And then we know that the Corpus Christi massacre stuff, well, the riots are happening outside. And the tie-in that you do with the camera to bring us to the window to see all of that violence on the street. Can you, I would have been really anxious setting up this shot, so I'm wondering how you would.
You know, this has been, I feel blessed that first I was trained as an AD, as a first AD, right. And then I was, I had the I've been lucky enough to being able to work in several Hollywood productions with a lot of different elements. You know, so you kind of start learning how to do stuff. But the interesting thing here is that, except probably my AD crew that he was highly experienced, my production designer and a couple of heads of department, my gaffer and so on, most of the crew was very young, you know, and they have not really done big films. And but this is the amazing thing of this thing of working together. You know, I remember when I started describing that scene, we went to the furniture shop and I said, we're going to do this.
Did that idea occur because of the location?
Well, no, the location is a real location. I mean, I wanted to shoot in the place where the action took place almost 50 years ago. When I was a kid, I saw, one of the things that I got very intrigued about this moment in history in Mexico came from a photograph in the newspaper that haunted me. That it was this student running away, being chased by one of these paramilitary guys with a stick, and this kid is just looking, with the long hair, is looking back at him. And in the background, you see this building where you see the furniture shop. And in the furniture shop, you see people looking down. And as a kid, my imagination was, probably I would not be down there because I'm too young, but I could have been up there. And I could have been looking down, you know, and the idea of that was kind of very scary as a kid. And so we decided to shoot in that place that now was a gymnasium. It was a whole logistic thing of negotiating with the gym, getting rid of the stuff, moving the gym to another location because they didn't want to go out of business. And, you know, all the logistic thing. And that's what I'm saying. When I went there, we asked permission just to go, not knowing that we were going to empty the gym. And I was describing sort of what we were going to do because I didn't want to have clear preconceptions of everything. But I would say very likely it's going to be one shot in which they're going to come shopping and stuff, and then we're going to go out of the window and there's going to be this riot going on. And it's when I realized the size of it. I was really, going into this film, I thought I kept on telling everyone, it's a small family film, about a family. And it was not until I started describing the scenes to the production crew that started realizing the whole thing. And I realized that they started panicking. We had a production meeting, and it's, how do you do it? You know, you use one spoon at a time. You know, you just have to break down things, see where are the problems, where are the issues, where the evil killer may be hiding, and you know, like, so everybody starts doing their work, and it's amazing. Once that people get the amazing role that they have, because the job in cinema is so specific, so many jobs, that if you take one job in its own, you would say, why, I mean, is it pointless? It's not pointless. What is amazing is when all these different people come together and create something. So what we did is that, okay, we're going to block this avenue that is a huge access to downtown Mexico, and we have to block it for 2 or 3 days. That was difficult, but was the whole logistic of making making the neighbors understand what we were doing. And when they heard that it was about this, we got a huge support from them. Then it was about, okay, but we have to have this already staged, what is going downstairs. We cannot stage the same day and block the whole traffic, because we actually, when we shot, we created a chaos in the city. So for several Sundays, we were rehearsing that scene in a football field, setting up a practicable at the height where the camera was going to be, so we could see, we could stage with a little bit more of detail. That I knew that I had to have perfectly well staged. The furniture shop, I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't want to know. Because that was few actors and I wanted to find surprises there. But the stuff outside, I completely blocked it first. So when we went there, you just start improvising with your actors on the thing. And nobody had the screenplay, so the character of Cleo didn't know that Fermin, the ex-boyfriend or boyfriend, will walk in, and so her reaction is her reaction of looking at him. So, and it was like that.
I'm going to interrupt. When you have that moment, and this is probably true for all of you, when you have a moment where an actor doesn't know what's going to happen, like what you just said, Fermin suddenly comes there and Cleo sees him, what happens take two? Is there even a value of take two?
In some instances, in that one is take one, her reaction, because I could not reinvent. What I did in this film is that they didn't have the screenplay. Each actor was given, I would give the dialogue to certain actors and instructions to others, but all of them contradicting. Even the dialogue that I would give, it would be not really the real dialogue to some of them. And I have different versions of that. And I have, the night before, maybe, yes, I was always trying to figure out new ways of creating these obstacles. An example, in one scene, I tell the mother, you have to focus on your older kid, so he writes a letter. And to the kid, I go and say, when your mom starts talking to you, you just leave the room. So it's to see how she reacts and how she would. By the next take, I know that she's going to know that he's going to leave. But then I tell another kid, when your brother leaves, you just leave as well. So you keep on adding and changing stuff. Here and there, you repeat the take twice. And it's not, you realize that you have to refresh the whole thing. And this is the first time I've ever done it.
That's right.
My other films tend to be more controlled, more planned. This is also the first film that using time. The paradigm that I took for this film is with Chivo Lubezki, the cinematographer, and working with my ADs in the UK lately. We always talk about what is the biggest burden of filmmaking. And I'm sorry, you guys deal with time very well, but time, I hate the whole situation with time, is that you always feel that you don't have enough time. And it's not only for the logistic things, it's time to explore with your character, explore different things. And in this one, I decided that I was going to allow enough budget to get a long prep, a super long shoot, and a long post. So for me, except that, for instance, that location that I had to get rid of, I had to get out. And actually, because we recognized that we were disrupting so much, we were supposed to be 3 days, we were just only for 2.
Wow.
Because, it's just, there's a thing that is also a certain responsibility to a whole community,
I got it. Thank you. Pressure and time for you? When do you feel it?
Well, I come from independent cinemas. We never had money. My first film we shot in 12 days, July 1st, July 14th, 2 6-day weeks. She used to have it cost $175,000. So we didn't have time to bullshit. Had to get it done. And people, to quote your great coach, Belichick, people gotta do their job. Gotta do the job. Let's go.
And when, if ever, do you feel pressure, and how do you deal with it? You, personally.
Gotta get it done. There's no other choice.
So is it easy? Does the day get harder for
I
you?
tell my students, NYU, there's no such thing as easy. But Professor Spike, it's not easy. I say, so what? Easy, if you're looking for easy, this is the wrong profession.
Well spoken. Very well spoken. Spike, talk about your process of casting and how it has evolved over the years, and how
Has not involved.
and how do you do it?
Get the best person for the role.
And how do you find that?
You get the best person for the role. This is not some secret stuff.
Well, if somebody's
You got to get the best people for the role, or it's not going to work.
absolutely, if someone's walking into your office in an audition, what happens to that? What's the process?
Well, I mean, first of all, everything's different, so there's no one way to do anything. I found Rosie Perez dancing on a speaker at a party. Do the right thing. Jungle Fever was Halle Berry's first film. I mean, she had to come back 6 times. Her character is a $3 crack hoe, and she was too fine the first 5 times. Finally got smart, and so she didn't take a shower for a week, and I didn't recognize her. Then she got the part. So it's really,
Were there
it's instinct. You know, I always try to have like a certain amount of roles. I want to introduce new people, have new faces.
who's in the room when you're in?
My casting director's been right now. It's Kim Coleman, Robbie Reed. I only had I used to call it 3 casting directors over the entire time.
Will you be videotaping them? Will you look at those videotapes? How do you deal with that? Or do you?
Well, if somehow I can't be with them, I look it on tape, but I have to be in the room. Because tape can only tell you so much.
I agree. Sometimes in an audition, you'll be in the process of asking an actor to read and redirect them. Sometimes you'll do something else and get into conversation. I'm curious, if you were casting.
Well, if someone comes in the room and you know they're not right, you want to get them out of there as soon as possible. Because you're wasting time. And you got a whole bunch of people to see. So you try, I'm very curious, thank you for coming. If I know them, good to see you. But they got to go. Next.
And will you ask them to read for you? And who's reading with them if somebody is?
Usually the casting director.
Got it. Were there parts in this movie that you found more challenging in terms of casting?
Well, not the David Duke character, but Jasper.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. The guy who plays Felix?
Yeah, he came in to, I never knew him, never even heard of him. And so he's given a riveting read. And I look at his last name, I can't even pronounce it. Because I say, where are you from? And he wouldn't tell me. I said, yo, my man, where are you from? And he says, Helsinki, Finland. I said, damn, I thought you from Mississippi, Alabama.
By the way, do you remember?
He's from Helsinki. He got the part.
Do you remember what scene you asked him to read? Do you remember?
I remember the scene, but he played the part. And he got it. So it's amazing that.
In casting his wife, who played Ashley Verkani?
Yes, she was in Inside Man.
Got it.
And she's great Broadway actors, a lot of Broadway.
Yeah. It's an amazing performance, I think she gives, by the way, separately.
And she's from Little Rock, Arkansas, too.
This I didn't.
Little Rock.
And in casting, this is very specific. There's I wonder about Harry Belafonte, but specifically, there's an amazing, for me, sequence in which Stokely is giving his
Kwame
Ture is giving his
name, Kwame Ture.
Is giving his speech, and there are these fabulous faces that you have up here before us, listening to what he's saying. Did you cast them, and do you remember the process? No, I'm sorry, you
Cast
did.
what, the faces?
Yeah, no, those people. I'm curious when.
Yeah, the extras.
And
We pull here, so there's a big auditorium, and we cast extras. So we had before that, we had an open call in Brooklyn, New York. If you have an afro, show up.
How many wigs did you see?
No. I spot the afro wigs. They got pulled out. You came with the wig. Now you had to have a natural. And so we knew those were the people we were going to use throughout the scene because we were wearing froze. But the reason why Chase, the DP, and I did that because that's those words that Corey Hawkins, who's playing Kwame Ture, Kevin and I, co-screenwriter, we got his speeches. And so we put together several speeches. And so he's saying, black people, you are beautiful. Your lips are big. Your noses are wide. You are beautiful. So it was easy to say we have to show the many variations of black people. Mm-hmm. So we had different colorations, all that stuff. So it was just really to emphasize the words that we're saying. And again, we're talking about the mid-'70s, you know. There's a reason why we had that scene where they're reciting the words of James Brown's song, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. We weren't taught that. You know, we were subhuman. Animals. Savages. Look at the history of American cinema. There's a reason why the movie opens with one of the most famous scenes in the history of American cinema, with that shot from Gone with the Wind. There's a reason why Birth of a Nation is in this film. We're dealing with the history of American cinema in this. Yeah. And so, in this speech, Kwame Ture talks about growing up having loved Tarzan. And he made the comparison as if a Jewish child was cheering Nazis marching Jewish people on the way to the concentration camp. So people like Malcolm, Martin, Kwame Ture, we had to learn to love ourselves. Because let me finish, please.
Please.
Because we have been taught to hate ourselves, to hate our skin, our hair, our negroidal features. If you ever see my film Bamboozle, look at the last 5 minutes, which is a compilation of many racist images we have in that film. We have Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney in blackface, Bugs Bunny in blackface. That is why we want to emphasize, because we've been brainwashed over the years. And that was Kwame Ture was saying to these young black students, you are beautiful, love who you are, love yourself.
When you shot that powerful scene.
What scene?
That's very scene.
Yeah.
And these faces that you're now showing.
But real quick though.
Yeah.
So it's auditorium like this, but we had another room set up. So we were plucking people out.
That's what I'm asking.
I was saying, all right, so we were pulling people out. We want to have different, we want to just show the same black person. So we have different features. You know, we had some blue blacks in there. had some high yallas in there.
What were they?
The whole different thing. We wanted to show that, and that's why. And then Barry, it's his idea that we start but first they were there, just standing there. Then he said, "You know what, Spike? We start moving these images."
Were they, when they were taken to that other room, was something said? Were you with them? Did something get said to them?
My man, I'm in
Yeah.
I'm with Corey.
Got it.
I can't. Now, we told him, look in the camera.
No more?
Your profiles. Look in the camera. I wasn't there. They would just said, look, at my third camera, shoot them, we gotta go. We're gonna move them in and out. So the continuity is messed up in that scene because we were just pulling people out. We didn't care.
In Topher Grace casting, how did you decide on him?
Good question. I would have never thought of Topher Grace for this role. We share the same agent, the legendary Tony Howard, in ICM. And she's never, ever, ever said, Spike, try to push a client. But this is the first time. She said, Spike, I've never done this before. Will you please read Topher? And since she's never done it before, I said, cool. And he killed him.
Did he kill walk in and?
Yeah, he had death threats, when the film came out, and it was not an easy role because he had to dig into that hate
and believe it,
and not easy because Bradley, that sometimes that stuff goes home with you. You just can't well, we're done filming for the day, but it can go home with you.
Got it. Thank you, man. Casting. Obviously, the stories of finding Yalitza, but I'm interested in casting the kids as well. How do you go about casting children?
Again, this is a very different process than any other one that I have done before, because I was looking for the instructions that the casting director had were very simple. They have to look identical to the people, the original people, like 50 years ago. Here are some photos, and in some cases I would describe them, so it was kind of abstract from them. And also they would have to feel the same. And it was just, the thing is I was dealing with people that I know very well, my closest bonds of affection growing up. And so I just had to find the kids that they would feel like them. And I did never put them together to stage anything. I just, as long as because I didn't want to mess up. I wanted to reinvent my process. I wanted to do things different than I have done before. And as long as they felt right, I hoped that they would have the same chemistry that my family had. And it happened. It was not until maybe a couple of days before shooting that once that they have gone through costumes and hair and stuff, that I said, okay, let's put them together. And I put a TV on and said, okay, you don't like that show, you like the show. I gave them separately specific instructions and I let them be.
But in choosing people to play both Pepe and Paco, there's significant things that they have to do, really emotional, particularly remembering a past that is not a past and being able to believe that I once was a pilot and I once drowned. And it's quite amazing that the boy does this and does it so simply. And I'm curious, when you were meeting whoever you were meeting, what did you say to them?
You meet them and you start talking to them and just listen. Particularly, you listen a lot of if they are kids, you just want them to talk. And
would there be questions that you ask?
Oh yeah, all the time. What? Yeah, I would ask questions about his life and stuff, what you like and stuff, what you don't like. But this kid was scary. He was amazing. It's just, it was. I have to pull him back actually, because I would say, okay, these are the lines. From here on, you just keep on, remember when you were, and he says, oh, when I was old, he said, okay. It's as if for him made more sense than for me. And then he would with that kid, Marco, you would just start him up and he will just gong himself. But that's mostly, I think with kids is mostly what happens. I don't believe in directing kids.
How do you mean?
I think that I don't give them a screenplay, even if I'm, in another process. I don't want them to really know much of what's going on, because you take away what they are amazing for. And it's just something so immediate. In the moment that they start having preconceptions and trying to understand, I personally don't like all these amazing child actors. Those that give thespian performances. I like to see kids on screen.
In terms of casting somebody like Furman, who has this amazing scene where he's naked and giving this incredible performance, how did you find this person?
That was, I knew that he had to be martial arts, so we were just casting martial arts experts or students. And we went through hundreds and hundreds until I met him. And
when you say went through hundreds, who's doing that? You're not seeing 100.
No, of course I'm not.
So who's doing that first?
No, that's the casting director. That's what they do. And the process would be same as everybody else, that they would send me videos first, just because I didn't want to spend time with people I knew that it was not going. I agree. You don't want to. I'm a bit more polite with the actors, by the way. I give them. I try to give them like 3-5 minutes. They went all the way there. I feel bad.
They get 5 minutes.
No, I feel. I know that for them it's an
Let me ask you
effort.
a question, though. Is there every time any of you guys here where someone walks in the room and you're like,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I just got to say, Spike, you're a sweetheart, because I auditioned for him to play like pilot number 3 10 years ago. And,
Out.
And no. And you were so sweet. And actors remember that. I forget what movie it was, but that was the first time we actually met, and you were so
You
kind.
read for me?
Oh, yeah.
Man, you missed it, man. You missed it.
Well, we both can't remember what it was.
No, but you remember how he treated you, though.
I do.
That's what you're
I mean,
gonna say.
Spike Lee, you get a chance to read for Spike Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to forget that.
And what do you
And
remember?
he was so kind. I still remember you sat down in the middle, you said, hello, how are you? You asked me about Philly. And then I did the thing, and you said, thank you. You got me out quick.
Next!
But you were very kind, and you are the way you are. You're present. You're a present human being. And so,
Thank you.
yeah.
All right.
Oh, shit.
Busted, man.
This is a special moment. Alfonso, I want to go back to Furman. How did you, when you finally found the one you wanted, did he know that this was that moment?
No, he didn't know anything. Nobody knew anything. That was part of the thing. They will go, they will show me videos, and I would select a few. And it says, I want to meet with these people. Just wait, the usual way. And I will, with that character, I would say, okay, do your whatever exercise while you're talking to me. And that was the thing. And this guy, he didn't know how to use that Kenso, that discipline. And Kendo. And he didn't know Kendo. And I said, and it was important because the paramilitary group was training Kendo. And there are not a lot of people in Mexico that saturation is gone. And ones that I like and said, hey, but you need to learn Kendo. And I said, fine. And he was amazing because he became really like a top, I don't know about the belts and all of that stuff, but he became pretty much an expert in a couple of months. And all of the other paramilitary guys. They had to be it was like process of maybe 6 months, that again, they have to learn kendo.
Got it. Wow.
You know, the whole thing of kendo. And
how long was your pre-pro? They had to learn that 6 months before you started to shoot?
yeah. Well, yes, because try to learn kendo, man.
But how long was your pre-pro?
It was lengthy. It was almost a year. I told you that's
No, he
what
said
I wanted
that's
to do.
time,
I
you said.
bought my time. I mean, it was not a year of all the departments together. I started 1 year with the cast. First, I started with the casting and locations, a small crew of each. And eventually that was part of the planning, how you...
From the beginning, you said that you want to take your time, right?
That it was about time, allowing myself to have
And
the time.
when you had this particular character to play, when did he know, I'm going to do this scene naked?
The day of.
We're all thinking that.
I have to say, no, this is a different thing because if you've seen the film, he doesn't have a problem with being naked. None. He doesn't have an issue there. So he said, fine. He was just, who was kind of uncomfortable was Yalitza.
Of course.
I mean, Yalitza comes from a village in Oaxaca, and yeah, she didn't feel very comfortable in that moment to.
Got it.
And you're not going to force anyone to do something that.
Well, I'm going to ask technically. What did he know a number of days before that this was going to happen? I'm asking it only because if the day of and talking about anxiety, what if the guy had said, "I'm sorry, I can't do that."
Then I'll have to put him in briefs probably at the end. Oh. I mean, I don't know. It's just I didn't want to go with that preconception. But at the same time, I didn't want to talk too much about the scene because it was going to take away the whole thing.
Got it.
And
but does that actually mean on that day when you're doing this scene, like Spike just said, it was, I want you to do this without any clothes?
Yeah.
That day.
Yeah.
But you were ready to, if he said no.
Well, of course, I'm not going to force anyone to do it. Okay, and this is, I hate to show the strings on one scene, but, we're peers here. Like, Yalitza was uncomfortable. And again, you're not going, he was fine, but Yalitza was not. And you're not going to force anything there. So what I did is I said, Yalitza, you know what? For his scenes, you can leave the room. Yeah, that's the reason that, for instance, that one is, and it's rare in the film because I don't use that language very much. Yeah, exactly. It's like this because she was uncomfortable about it. And so I did her side first. I staged the scene with him on briefs so she could react to the whole thing. They staged more or less what it was going to be. Then I shot him first. I shot him first, and then I wanted her reactions pure, so I shot her, but with him in briefs.
Got it.
And then there's one shot of the hand that I put there a double because she was not comfortable with that. And that's the thing, you just have to sort out the things, as long as you feel that you're being honest with the moment.
Got it. One more casting. Professor Zovic, if I got his name right.
Yes.
Which is, I felt in my mind the first time I saw it, that the air of Fellini was just going through my head as I looked at this character and that particular scene. And I'm wondering, where did you find this guy?
Well, first of all, with these guys, we don't find them. They exist, We just meet them.
Okay.
Because someone keeps on asking me, was asking where did I find Yalitza? And Yalitza, I didn't find her. We met. It's not Christopher Columbus didn't find America. But so it was. I knew that I needed like a guy who would be like strongman. Yeah. So we try James, but the thing is that the muscles the muscle man of today in gym is completely different than the one in the 70s. You know, now it's like, yeah, it's that, and also I don't know what else. But you know, when I was a kid, I remember Johnny Weissmuller was a strong guy, you know, and so we started looking then for lucha libre guys, and this guy happens to be a lucha libre star, but also a stripper. Well, not stripper. It's one of those only for ladies shows that, you know. Yeah. Well, stripper. Male stripper. Yeah.
Male.
Yeah, I guess that male stripper in a classy show. Okay. And I remember and the amazing thing when I said I like this guy, I didn't know who he was, you know, because I don't live in Mexico. So I'm not part of I part of the sociopolitical landscape, but yeah, the little, you know, more pop characters, I don't know everyone.
Got it.
You know, and when I said, oh, I like this guy, there would be people, oh, how are you going to work with him? And I tell you something, he was amazing. He was really good. You know, and it shows how our preconceptions sometimes, if we know too much, sometimes is not so good.
Well spoken. Talking about casting for you, Adam, you've got so many characters that, in fact, we recognize. So there's Condi Rice. Well, is the actress going to look like Condi Rice? How are you making your decisions about who you're going to cast?
We were mostly, I told everyone you don't have to do an impression. I don't need you to look exactly like them. But we were lucky enough to get some amazing actors in, and for the most part, they did. It was pretty shocking. And I mean, the thing I really talked to all the actors about, especially Christian and Amy as kind of the lead sort of portrait of the movie, was like, these real people didn't leave a lot of breadcrumbs. You know, we don't know because Dick Cheney doesn't want his story told. So in everyone's case, really, we had to do like a lot of research. And I told the actors, you're kind of collaborating with the research I did on the script. And everyone went very, very deep. It was amazing to watch. I mean, I remember hearing Sam Rockwell on set, and we were actually listening to the real tape of Bush reading the announcement of the Iraq War, and you couldn't tell the difference between Rockwell and him. Yeah, it's just really, really good actors, and everyone did their research. And sort of the mission of the movie was, let's see if we can chase down this shadowy character, this guy who doesn't want his story told. I mean, his autobiography was useless. It was like, yeah.
In terms of an actor coming to you in an audition, what's your process?
I mean, I think it's the same as everyone. I think you kind of know when it's clicking. You know, it's crazy sometimes, like Spike was talking about, sometimes you'll see people on tape and you're not even there because you were busy doing something else. And I've cast people off tape before a couple times where it's so good on tape, you go, oh my God, this is what we've been waiting for. The big reason that, you know, you're polite to an actor when they come in, beyond basic human decency, is that I've been wrong plenty of times. So there were several times on this movie where an actor walked in and I thought, that's probably not them. And then Don McManus, who played David Addington, was a guy who walks in, and Don has hair down to his shoulders. And it's just, he walked in and I was like, just no way. And then he started reading the character, like, oh my God, all right, we're getting a wig.
Who's in the room with you?
It's Francine Maisler, did the last couple movies with me, and she's incredible. And then my executive producer, Robin Woolley, is there. It's usually the three of us.
And who will read?
Francine reads, but if it's a character that needs to improvise, I'll jump in as well, because I can throw some lines back with them. And Francine knows sometimes even during the audition, I might throw something in.
Now, when you throw a line, are you throwing a line that you want them to say, or are you getting them into a dialogue with you?
I'm playing, I'll just, as a character, start jumping into the scene, and I'll tell them beforehand, we may go off the script. So then in the audition, sometimes I'll just throw out a line as a character and kind of see what happens and just see how they handle it.
Got it. There's some actors, as we know, who are really good at that. Some actors who are wonderful actors but aren't good at it at all. Will that stop you if you suddenly see, oh, this person can't pick up the improv? Really wonderful actor, but that's not what he or she can do.
You know, I've never worked with anyone who can't do it. Everyone can do it. I remember Richard Jenkins when I worked with him.
Whoa. You say everybody can improvise?
I mean, I used to teach improv, so I can get people to improvise.
You come from Del Close. You come from...
Yeah, I taught improv for a long time, so I know a couple moves that I'm not saying everyone's like hit the ceiling brilliant.
I'm just asking.
But I mean, you're improvising right now. I mean, it's just, that's all it is. Just, yeah. You just improvise. So yeah, like Richard Jenkins was like, please do not have me improvise. And I was like, Richard, I'm gonna have you improvise. And then in the end of the movie, there was this big moment. I was like, we need a speech here. And he's like, yeah, but we don't have one written. I go, why don't you try something like this? Just say this, this, and this. And he goes, I'm not doing that. I go, come on, Richard, just do it. And he did like 2 takes. And the first thing when I saw him, this was Step Brothers. And the first thing I saw him after the movie was locked, he was like, you didn't put that speech in the end, did you? And I was like, oh yeah, it's in there. And it gets an applause break. So I when I have them improvise, it's more just to hear what it's like when they improvise. I know that every human can act like a human, you know, so it's just to kind of see how...
Almost.
Yeah, almost.
What were the challenging roles for you, if there were, in this picture in Vice? Were there some roles where that really you kept looking?
I think W. Bush was the hardest one. I think he became such a comedy character, and part of that's my partner Will Ferrell's handiwork, that he became such a cartoon that you forget there's a real guy there. But then the trick was the real guy is kind of ridiculous. So what's that blend between the two? And the scene we showed, I mean, George W. Bush is kind of ridiculous, but he has to be a real person. And that's where you kind of cheat and you get Sam Rockwell, who's like one of the best actors alive.
Now, did you ask Sam to do it, or were you seeing other people? Or
no. Right from the beginning, I started writing the script. I thought of Sam Rockwell and got very lucky that he said yes.
When I just ask the same question to Spike, there's a scene in which this is the sort of the scene when they really rise to power. It's the moment when they're walking through a party, and you go into slow motion. And there are a whole series of faces of people who are responding to them. Mm-hmm. And they now know they have the power.
Yeah.
Choosing those people, do you remember the process?
You know, that's a little bit, I was lucky enough on my last movie to get to work with Barry Ackroyd, the DP, who does a lot of stuff with Greengrass. And I really like that kind of, I don't know what you call it, kind of, neo-verite kind of style. So Greg Fraser is so adaptable to all styles. I just said, shoot this like a documentary, overcrank it and shoot it like a documentary and just grab people. So we even give minimal directions from the AD. We just say, this couple's walking through, just look at them. They've got the power. And then we just go back and forth. I think we were on a dolly for that. And we just pluck it off like it's a documentary. Because you are looking for it. You don't want it to be perfect. You want it a little flawed or a little off. If it gets too clean, you're kind of screwed.
When you were casting some of the, I guess, Al Zakawi, do you remember how you chose that particular, he's got a great face, how you chose him?
That was big. Yeah, we went through loads and loads initially of photos, and then I picked 2 or 3, and they actually, in that case, I said, bring them to set. And the same with Osama bin Laden, too, was very tricky to cast. And I was like, you can't be wrong on this. If it looks cheesy or second rate, the movie will just be thrown off its axis. So in those cases, we had them come by, I met them, I talked with them, just knowing once again, we could improvise, they could end up having lines.
And so if you're first meeting somebody, for example, that person who's coming in there, what will the conversation be about if you're just talking to them?
It'd just be, hi, hey, I'm Adam, how you doing? Where are you from originally? I'll just do a whole conversation just to see how they naturally behave, talk about what other languages they speak. Then I'll talk to them about the role. Are you aware of what the role is? You don't want someone showing up on their first day and, oh, by the way, you're Osama bin Laden. So are you comfortable? Although I may do that to someone now. That's So you want them to be comfortable with it. So a big thing I'll tell them is just the context. What's going on in this scene? How are we depicting it? You want to make sure the person playing the role knows that we're not doing something where the Middle Eastern guy is just the generic bad guy. Like, we're trying to do something that's a comment about actual history. So that's a very important thing for me. But man, oh man, those scenes were very hard to shoot. Especially the torture scenes were really emotionally really draining for all of us. And the scenes with the terrorists, knowing those scenes actually took place. And they actually sat there and they planned how to kill thousands of people. And you know, the wardrobe and the production design's so good. And you're in the room with these guys holding Kalashnikovs. It was, all of us had a very somber, sort of reverent attitude towards those scenes.
I want to jump just one more thing, casting kids, because the kids are fairly significant, at least the young ones in the family. How did you cast the two daughters when they were young?
Similar thing. Bring them in the room, conversations, looseness. The biggest thing with kids is you don't want the parents giving them notes. So that's the first thing I will say is please tell the parents. I don't want them coaching them. Leave them alone.
Cast the parents too, though, right?
What's that?
I cast the parents first before I speak. I get the.
Speak with the parents. Make sure the attitude's right. The vibe is good. Absolutely. And the number one thing is parents cannot give them notes, because I've had that happen before, and it's a nightmare. Where all of a sudden you come in and there's some weird cadence to their read, and you realize the parent had them do like 50-line read, and it's ruined. Like, so at that point, I'll have to just get rid of the script and just start improvising. But mostly with the kids, you're improvising anyway. Don't you guys find it's like you're mostly improvising? Yeah.
Pete, how about you in casting? Were there roles here that were really challenging, and how do you go about your process?
Well, the whole process for me is I remember years and years ago, I was in a TV casting, and that's the worst. I was in a room, there had to be 20 or 30 people in the room, you know, executive assistants, this, that, studio thing. And they had people come in and they didn't even ask them their names. They would come in and they'd go. And the person would do one take and they'd leave. And I turned around, I was like, are you kidding me? This is it? And they said, yeah. I said, but this is a test of nerves, not of acting. You know, on a set, you get people comfortable so they can act. Why would you make it so that they're just nervous? You're really not you're just finding the guy with the best nerves, not the best actor.
Oh, that's great.
No, it was annoying. So I actually go the other way, where when people come in, I do what you do. I say, where are you from? You know, what's going on? Blah, blah. Oh, yeah, oh, cool. How long have you been out here? Blah, blah, blah. And then I say, listen, we're going to do it, and then you're going to get to do it again. I tell them up front so they're not a wreck. And they do it, and then they do it again. The bad thing about that is that I'm getting their hopes up, because they're like in the room with me for a while, whereas Spike's doing the right thing. Spike's saying like, no, Spike's like, dude, this ain't working out, go. Like, no.
Don't do that.
Well, no.
Thank you for coming in.
No. It's like, I remember as a kid, when I was probably 6 years old, we had a nice little house, no backyard. I said, Dad, can I get a horse? He says, no, we don't. Where are we going to put a horse? I said, we'll put him in the backyard. He says, well, they'll freeze back there. We're in Rhode Island. I said, I'll build a barn. He goes, Pete, you can't build a barn for a horse. You know, we don't have room for a barn. I said, okay, what if I take the trash out every day, and I'll do the dishes? He goes, you can't get a horse. There's no room for a horse, Pete. And I was like, well, what if I get straight A's, like in everything, and I mow the lawn like 3 times a week? And what if, and finally he said, Pete, you're never getting a fucking horse. I never thought of a horse again for the rest of my life. It was like, okay, I'm not getting a horse. And I moved on to something, a go-kart or something. And that's what you're doing when you say, hey, thanks for coming in. That's very nice of you. And I'm trying to get them, but see, this is an issue that I have with, like, I want to make them relax. I want them to feel comfortable when they do their lines. But unfortunately, because of that, and I've bumped into people, they think that, well, they must have done pretty damn well, because I had them in there for, 15 minutes or something, and it kind of breaks their heart. So it's a double-edged sword. It's one of the tough things. As far as, I'm sorry. I was going to say, my cast, well, I got Rick Montgomery. He's my only guy who's worked with me on every movie, I think. He's been my casting guy. He's an amazing guy. And he weeds through people, so I can take that time, because I don't have to look at 100 people. He, whittles it down to 15 or 20 or sometimes 7 or 8. And, but it's rare that I get the people up front like that I want. It's just like Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber, 150th guy we offered it to. Everybody had passed. And so I started thinking, after that happened, I realized, well, no one's better than Jim Carrey. And he was my 150th choice. So it felt like, well, maybe it's not, maybe you don't always want to get what you want. Maybe you want to let the universe do its job and bring these people to you. And that's how I started thinking until the universe fucked me over a couple times. Yeah. And I forgot, and I had forgotten, well, yeah, but up to that 150, I was working my ass off to get everybody in. And I started getting like, oh, you don't want in? Fine. You go, I don't care. I got a better thing coming. And I didn't a couple times. And so I fight for it, but I do believe that, you can only fight so hard. But in this case, I really pushed Viggo because Viggo he didn't believe he could do it. And all his arguments I could overcome. He says, oh, I don't look anything like the guy. I said, nobody knows what he looks like. They said, you're not playing Abe Lincoln, He goes, but that guy he was heavy too. I said, no, again, no one knows what he looks like. He goes, I don't know if I could do that Italian thing. I said, you did Eastern Promises, dude. I mean, this is a walk in the park compared to that. And I just kept pushing and pushing. And we had all these phone calls. And finally he said, okay, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to gain weight. I said, you don't have to gain weight. You could do a fat suit. You don't really have to. No, I want to become the guy. I want to feel the weight on me. And he went out, gained 45 pounds. And did his thing, but he was my first choice, and I just was like, I really held on to that bone. I was like, please, because he liked the script, but he, for some reason, was having a hard time picturing himself doing it. And the great news is, once I got him, I knew I could get anybody. So I thought, okay, who's my favorite guy out there? I thought Mahershala Ali. I just seen Moonlight, and I thought, that's the guy I want. And all actors love Viggo, so it was like suddenly I had the choice of any actors in the world. And oddly, by the way, got them all and still had no studio. The studios were like, Viggo, Mahershala, Linda Cardellini, I got everybody. And they're like, I don't know, maybe if you do it for, $4 million. It's a period piece, I need a few bucks. It wasn't that expensive, it was $20 million. But there was no way I could do it for $4 million. It was a different process in this time in that I got everybody.
In casting some of the roles that were more challenging, which were they, and how did you handle it?
The more challenging, obviously there's not that many roles, big roles in this movie, but the family. The family, I wanted, real, Guidos in there. I wanted like New York Italian, hey, how you doing? What's up? I wanted the real thing. So we really, that took a long time to look at those guys. And then there were things that just happened that are, like Alfonso was saying, like not everybody gets the script. They get their sides sometimes, and they try out for a part, but they really don't know the whole story. And I remember the day we were shooting the scene where Viggo drops the glasses into the trash in the kitchen, and there's the 2 black workers there, and we had hired them down in New Orleans where we were shooting, and they'd only read that scene. And when we're shooting it, they start realizing, wait a second, they didn't realize Viggo's dropping the glasses. They just see a guy's name, they think that's the bad guy who's doing this. But then they see, as we're shooting it, this is the good guy dropping those glasses in the sink. And they pull me aside and they say, what the hell kind of fucking movie is this? Like, is this, what is going on here? And I had to take him in the other room. We had to stop shooting for about 45 minutes, and I walked him through the whole story. I said, yeah, he does start that way. This is where this guy starts. And then he grows as it goes on. But they thought, like, they don't know where this story's going. And all of a sudden they see the hero, obviously Viggo Mortensen's the star, and he's doing this stuff. What is this? So it got really interesting. And
Are you saying that the two actors suddenly said, "Wait a minute, this
Yeah,
is
on the
what
set.
we agreed to"?
Well, they were like, "What? I want to know more," because they had just seen, Tony Lip drops the glasses in the sink, but they don't know that's my star. They think they must be working at someone's house who's a bad guy, and it's going to clearly be a bad guy. And so they suddenly started saying, "Hey, where's this going? I want to know more." And so we just stopped production for like 45 minutes. I took them in, I told them the entire story, and they're like, "Awesome, let's go back," and we did it, and it was great. So it was interesting.
And dealing with the kids, you had to, because that's part of the family. What did you do in casting those kids?
Well, we cast them a little older than they actually were. They were about 3 and 5, the kids, but we didn't want to have to deal with that, so we cast kids who were like 8 and 10 or 12. So we could have them longer in the day, because there's a certain amount of time you could have little kids in each year. But also, I don't make them read at all. I just talk to them. How to do it? Say this. Blah blah. How you doing? Blah blah. I get the feeling for what they can do, and it's hard for them to come in and. If it was a much bigger part, I would have them read lines, but it's so little, I know I could just be.
I'm curious. At the end, the guy who's the maitre d' in the very last sequence where they're playing their final gig, how did you find him?
Read him. Rick Montgomery brought him in, and he was just awesome. He just, one of those guys. As soon as I saw him, I thought, yeah, that's the guy. I might have seen him on tape too, and I might have even cast him off tape. No, I think Rick had him. He had him show me on tape, and then he came in, and he was just perfect. And as it turns out, I guess that guy, and I'm so sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now, but he was kind of in a popular Disney kids show, and my kids, when they were watching, like, "Hey, Dad, that's the guy. That's the principal from something," and. But I'm glad I didn't know that, because I might have thought, I don't know if I want to do it. But this guy just knocked it out of the park, and he was fantastic and did just a great job.
Bradley, thank you. You've been in auditions.
Thousands. There was a time where I didn't realize you actually get the role. I swear. I remember the first time I actually got the role, I thought, wait, what do you mean? I have to do it? I thought like a good week was like, I get a call back, I'm set, because I have another job, and this is just a thing I'm doing, running around New York City, and it's like, oh, I get a call back, but then there's Sex in the City. What do you mean I gotta go, wait, what, a wardrobe fitting, what? So that was crazy, but yes, so yeah.
But you now know the process from being
Sure do.
opposite Spike. Then here's the question, how do you go about it? Because
again, this thing that you were talking about, Alfonso, time. I had so much time to prep this movie, and because I co-wrote the movie, as I was writing it, I started, first of all, the thrill of being able to have actors, to direct a movie and to have actors, and I could shoot actors that I love their eyes and their face and their presence and their voice. That was one of the things, and I love giving every character an entrance in our film. But as I was writing it, I just started to think about these people that I've known, like Lunell, who's the cashier. I worked with her in All About Steve. And she's wonderful. She's a stand-up comedian. I thought she's got to do it. So I knew Gabe Fazio, who's the guy that comes up to Jackson in the cop bar. It was my classmate in grad school, and he was the best actor. And I was like, we actually did Place Beyond the Pines together.
he plays Ramon, her friend?
No, the guy who comes up to Jackson and says, "I want to take a photograph." You look like the guy that, yeah. And then Derek, the guy who was Etta James, I was in grad school with, and he always had this incredible physique. And when I was thinking about those shots, I was like, I want Derek's shoulders. And I was like, maybe I should ask Derek to come do it. And I explained the shot. I know this is crazy. I know you've never done drag, but I want you to sing Etta James, and I'm going to shoot it like this. I want you to do this with your hands. So, Charlie's my dog. My ear doctor is the ear doctor in the movie. Half the crew's in the movie. Maddie Lebetique is the photographer of her. And I guess that comes from the joy of being able to shoot people that I've loved over the. Ron Rifkin, I did Alias with. I've known him for 20 years, and I love our relationship, our real relationship, and we've been through so much together. I thought, we could just crush that. He has to be the guy in rehab, and also because of the hearing aids. Greg Grumberg, who's his driver, I did Alias with. So it was just like I got to use all this 20 years as an actor being in this business to start to cherry pick people and ask them to be in the movie.
Were there any people who actually...
Anthony Ramos, I did not know. He was the only person that I saw on tape.
And you saw him on tape, did you?
I didn't, yeah, because, it's like Elie Kazan in that great autobiography of life talked about what he would do is invite them over and go for a walk around the block. That's what I subscribe to. It's like, it's all about equality, right? And that's the only thing, people would say like, oh, you didn't get the role because you don't have the quality. It's really true. You can crush an audition, you can kill it. But if you don't have that quality that the director's looking for, it doesn't matter. And I don't think that always comes through when you're acting in a scene in an audition. It's all about, I'm looking at you right now, like, can I see you? Are you present? Can I see your soul? Do you have this? Do I want to shoot you? And is this gonna with the camera? And is this something that there's a connection? And that only comes from having a conversation. And that's what it was with Lady Gaga. I heard her sing, and it blew me away. And then I met her at her house, and just talking to her within 10 minutes. And obviously, I wanted us to sing together to make sure that it wasn't abominable what I was doing with her. But it was just that quality. And we were talking about earlier. You go on faith. Same thing with Dave Chappelle. It was like I met him in London. I was doing The Elephant Man. We had this incredible 8-hour conversation. And I thought, oh, this is perfect. He would be perfect for Noodles. Just everything that Noodles has gone through and what Dave has gone through. And there's that similarity that he could really speak from a deep, deep place. So that was, Mary Vernew did an incredible job, but I'm sure I was also a pain because I was like, no, it's going to be Jake, the Marine that I did Sniper with, who's going to play your manager.
Well, again, doing children, there's a wonderful scene with Dave Chappelle where...
That's his daughter. That's his daughter, Dave Chappelle's daughter, and that's Drina De Niro's son, Leo. So I just asked them to bring their real kids because then they don't have to fake it.
And also there's a style of performance in your movie that has, in a strange way, an improvisational feel as well. It may not have been, but it has that feel of people actually in conversation, even overlapping dialogue. And I'm curious because you know these people and can trust that process, or how did that evolve for you?
I think it's a combination. I think that, you're talking about repeating questions in Q&As. I often got asked, like, is it harder to act and direct? I really felt like I had such a leg up because I could be there on the field with the actors and risking with them. And I think that it was their trust. I think they were even willing to trust me even more, I think, to show their soul. And authenticity was just something. We have the real deal with her. And, even, for example, about casting, they wanted to cast Jack's band. And I had been, at that point, making music with Lucas Nelson and his band the whole time. And I was just telling him, what do you mean cast Jack's band? That's his band. So it was just about being authentic constantly. And, I do like to shoot 2 cameras at the same time. So that there's that ability to overlap, and then it's not a nightmare in the editing room.
Where do you put yourself? This is actually for all of you. Where do you put yourself? Well, yours is even more complex. I'm interested in where you put yourself on the set when you're shooting. But where did you put yourself? Or
I like to be very close, and just from years as an actor, I get, taking out, how can I get rid of the paranoia for the other actor? And if it's just like a voice from, somewhere else. Like, there's no even Video Village. I would just go into the DIT and watch the playback. I don't want chairs. I don't want anything. And like Clint Eastwood with American Sniper, he was always right there. I would ask him, and David wrote, please be really close. So I'm always very close. All those scenes that Jackson's not in, I was right there, right by the camera. Poor Scott Sakamoto, who's the greatest ever. I would always be right hunched in over him. But that, because I like it, it's a community. You're doing it together. And for me as an actor, I could give you my best work if you make me feel safe and it's inclusive and we're doing it together and you got my back. If you're just throwing me out there and I'm sort of in this abyss, me personally, I'm not going to give you what you want.
In setting that, in fact, that's our responsibility, to set an atmosphere.
And risk to fail, that's the other thing. Let's just try stuff. As Jackson's like, other actors watch, oh, that was horrible. It's like, it doesn't matter. Let's just go. Let's go. And the other thing about anxiety, it's like what you were saying. It's like, did I excavate as much? That was the thing when you're in that hole. It's like, did we go deep enough? Am I utilize this time? Have we explored enough? Have we gotten to the truth enough? We got to keep going until they say time's up.
And when something's behind you, for example, there's a moment in the scene we just saw where I think it is Ramon who's behind you, who's laughing. You're in front of the other performers. How are you being able to, as a director, recognize that all of these people behind you are giving you what you wanted?
Well, that in terms of the drive, that was all about creating an environment where people are going to be acting natural. So it's getting a rhythm before we even started shooting, of having music playing, getting people talking, and then almost them not even knowing, because we were shooting so fast. And also placing people that I would watch behaving in a way that I thought was naturalistic behind me at that time. Like, that guy was standing over there, could we put him there? And things like that, especially who Jackson goes and starts to talk to. Just observing behavior of the people in the scene while we're even setting up.
And so then are you going to check? You just said, I realize there's no video village. Are you going to still check? Okay, I want to make sure I've got
Yeah,
that.
I'll go just for like a second, just to see it. But I don't like to watch too long. Just like a second. I'm almost like, yep, okay, that's good.
And when you're working in terms of positioning yourself in a way, there's two wonderful scenes with her. One I know you've talked a little bit about, which has to do when you say she's ugly. What's happening in terms as the director here and the actor, knowing that if I'm going to do something, and this applies to Adam, to your working too, it's going to be fresh. She's not going to know that this is going to happen. Where are you so that you can, if there needs to be a take 2 or 3, how are you handling it?
Well, that was actually tricky because we were in the confines of that house, which I love so much. But for that particular thing, I want to do this pushback and then have the door close on us, the audience, as she rises up as a titan out of the water, naked, and bam. There was luckily a closet, so Scott Sakamoto, we had to excavate that closet. So it was quite a technical shot, actually, for the end part of that scene. But at that point, Stephanie and I had gone through so much, that was probably the last third of the shooting, that we trusted each other enough. I think I may have said to her, also she's naked in a tub while we're shooting the scene. I mean, it's a very vulnerable thing. And I think I just whispered to her, we're gonna have to go a little, it's gonna get a little rough. And then and she just sort of was like, okay. And then I just walked out, and then I walked in, and then we did it, and it got pretty ugly. And it was hard, I was actually shaking, I remember that. And then we just hugged and kind of cried together, because it was fucking horrible. It was horrible, but it was beautiful. I mean, that's why we do this. It's like raising that ugliness to a place of healing.
As you said, a place of healing and authenticity, as you just said. You have the scene, again, another one near the end of it, where your character breaks. Do you remember setting that up?
That was all about environment. This place of almost. I wanted it to be, light and serene and oddly antiseptic, and then you'd realize that they're not even private. At the end of that scene, there's a woman on her laptop. So there's these horrible moments, life moments that are happening in these facilities. Where in the public eye. That was so heartbreaking to me. That was a much longer scene, and I didn't cut that down to the very end, because it really, we were both, it was rocking, man. And it had such a beautiful arc to it. But that moment where that happens to him, that was only one take. And I remember her, her care. I remember her touching my with her fingers, and I just thought, it was just so special. And I remember thinking, I thought, oh, but I didn't cry. I actually didn't cry in that take. And I thought, and here was the dilemma as the actor. And I thought, but right after we wrapped, right after we cut, I started crying hard. And I thought, oh, should we just roll again so we get the real tears? And I thought, no, motherfucker. I was like, that's what happened. He wasn't able to in that moment. And that was a really tricky thing from the actor and the storyteller. And I just made peace with it, and we moved on. But that was an interesting day.
I'll bet.
You asked a great question about how do you keep everything cool on the set, or the tone, and it really comes down to the ADs. The first AD, second AD, third AD. If you have a strong first AD, you should never have to get excited. I've never raised my voice on a set because my first AD does that. He's walking around hey, come on, move it, and then I've been talking to actors where, giving them direction, and he comes up to me, Pete, come on! I'm like, excuse me, I'm directing here, And I love that. I love that. It's J.B. Rogers. But also, your second AD, your third AD, that's how you can have the scene in the furniture store and everything. They get to the window and the crowd's coming by because you got ADs working in, doing their job. And it's not just it's a real team effort.
There's no question.
And if you've got a strong team, with you, everything's smooth, and that's what I have, and I'm lucky. Yeah.
I think we all, I'm so glad all of you have been making references to your ADs, because there's no question.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
There's a reason why they're called assistant, because that's our assistant. But where do you position yourself, Peter? Where are you? Where do you position yourself on the set? Where are you?
I'm usually at the monitor, but sometimes if an actor needs me, I'm up there. But I usually stay back. But the monitor is pretty close to where they are, and I can kind of see more through the monitor. Sometimes when I'm working with my brother's at the monitor, and I'm up with the actors, and then after each take, I walk back and we talk. And the truth is, he probably sees more than me, because I'm looking at, I got camera guys and booms and all sorts of stuff that are, distracting me. But he's just seeing what's in that frame. And so I just check in. What's with this? Blah, 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 blah. And then, I'd come back and talk to them. But
And when you want to give a note to a performer, how is the process, particularly if you wanted to change something?
Okay, well, that's a really interesting question. This is I ask every actor when I'm working with them, I say, do you mind line readings? I'll ask them right up front, because I have a habit of just doing it without thinking. I'll just, what no good. I'll say something like that. And there are, I'd say 90% of actors are fine or even love line readings. I remember doing Kingpin with Woody Harrelson. He just basically, how would you do it? How would you do it? All day long. I was helping him find it. But other actors, they're annoyed by that, because they're like, hey, you're stealing my thunder here. Let me find it. And in this case, I had two very different actors. Vigo was looking, go ahead, show me how to do it. Is that right? Say it. He would say, and I say, what, no good? He goes, and he'd say, what, no good? I said, no, what, no good? And we'd go back and forth like that. Whereas Mahershala, I would never do that. That would get in his head if I ever gave him a line reading. So I would just discuss, I think you could, take it down a notch, or, you seemed angry there, and I don't think you should be. Okay, I, talk him through it. But for the most part, it's rare that I give a line reading, but I like it when I have to. But I won't if it's going to get in a guy's head. And I didn't know that until probably my second movie, where I thought line reading, I'm just giving them to everybody. And finally, some actor said, "Dude, don't do that. Let me find it." And I thought, "Oh, what are you talking about?" He goes, "I don't like line readings." I said, "Oh, I didn't know that was a thing." And then I'd ask other ones, "Do you mind line readings?" They kind of bug me. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Why didn't you ever say anything?" But
You never worked with Robert Duvall, did you?
No. But I ask up front. I said, "Are you okay with the line reading occasionally?" And most people will say, "Yeah, great." Some will say, "Please."
Got it.
And Vigo was a please guy. Mahershala was like, "I'd prefer not."
Yeah, I got you. Actually, I'm interested. I think David O. Russell, when you worked with David, sometimes would do that, actually perform for you what he wanted you guys to do. And
he has a really unique process, which is, because he's writing in real time also. So he's literally writing while you're shooting the movie in a take, and he'll write a new dialogue and speak it out while the camera's rolling, and so that you kind of pick it up and then do it in that cadence.
Got it.
And it's kind of this wonderful musical quality to it. But yeah, and it's all about his rhythm, and that's what I love about working with him. You try to get in line, okay, what's his rhythm? And when it's working at its best, he lets you then take the reins, and then you actually can just start, going off on your own.
And when you wanted to redirect, if that was something you wanted to do, how do you approach your actors?
In terms of line readings and stuff?
No, in terms of anything. Here you've seen this performance. This is a moment that you want to give an adjustment of sorts. How do you go about?
In Star Wars Born, you mean?
Yeah.
It all depends. It really all depends. I mean, it got as micro as put your head down, look up, touch your face. It got that micro sometimes, and other times it was just absolutely let it flow. It really depended on the actor, the scene, where I wanted it. how can I get them into a place where they're completely out of their head and at the same time in line with what I want to be excavating in that moment.
And if you had to do that, do you remember a moment where, oh, I know this person's too much in the head, and how would you get them out of it? I don't know if you remember a moment, but
I do, yeah. I mean, Sam was the most seasoned actor in the movie, Sam Elliott. And I think it was just, and so you never know. I love line readings, depending on who they're from, but yeah, just tell me. I'm serving the director. There was the last scene with Stephanie on the couch, and I had asked him to come back and do the movie. You know, he had already wrapped, and I wrote that for him. It was originally going to be another character. So again, he's coming into this thing, and and it's a big thing, and he hadn't really prepped that before. But I knew he already had. He was Bobby. He just didn't have to overthink it. So I remember he because of the way I wanted to shoot it, he was doing this a lot, and I just thought, it just doesn't. That's not the frame. And it was just, it was a very simple thing. Just see what happens if you can't touch your face. And it was beautiful. Just some sort of little thing all of a sudden opened up. And so when he did decide to touch his face, it was really something. So that was just like a little specific thing.
that's such an interesting issue, because if you make an actor aware of what the actor is doing, sometimes that can, in fact, start to freeze the performance. And in this case, it didn't.
No, because it felt like it was maybe compensating for some, or some sort of. It was. To me, it was preventing me from getting it right into him.
Got it. Wow.
And his willingness to trust me on that, and not go like, "What are you talking about?" Was so beautiful, and yeah.
Thank you. Adam, where are you on the set? I know. I did hear that. You did have that.
Well, I do the same thing I'm sure everyone does. I talk to the actors, each one beforehand, and I talk to them about what way they're comfortable working. If it's a scene where we're going to really be kicking it around and ripping it apart and putting it back together, I'll do the Apple box up close, away from the monitor. Most of the time it's at the monitor, and I'll use the mic a little bit. But once again, the trick with the mic is just to keep it cool. Like if it ever becomes barking, you're dead, because that mood on the set is everything, like everyone's been talking about. You just want failure, everyone to be comfortable with failure. You just, I'll say it over and over again. It's just film. We'll do another take. Let's do another take. Like, who cares? That's why you're doing multiple takes. So it all depends on the actor, the conversation I've had with them. It depends on the scene.
In this very scene that we saw.
That was one where I was at the monitor, but I'm coming in the room a lot, talking with them, going back to the monitor. There's a back and forth. That was not Apple box.
Was the scene when early on when she is accusing, Amy Adams is accusing him of being a bum, and I'm not going to stay with them? I'm curious whether that was one.
That was actually very convenient. That was right outside the window was our monitor. So I was at the monitor, and then the window was there, and literally could just talk to him. And we did a lot of improv in that. And also did stuff with her dad, with Shea Wiggum playing her dad, and did a lot of improv with that. So that was one where I came up near the set, and then would go back, and then we would talk, or Shea would run over, or Amy would run over. And I mean, that's the best, right? I think we all know that. When the scene is like you're back and forth with the actor, you're playing around with it, you're checking with the DP, the shot is changing as you're discovering it. It's where the scene really comes to life. And it is that thing of until the day you never fully know. And we showed up in that weird house like an hour and 40 minutes outside LA, and there was this beautiful breeze blowing, and you could see this field out the back window, and everything just sparked immediately for the scene where Amy's yelling at Christian.
And when you want to give a readjustment or an adjustment, and you actually know you want something different, I don't know if that even happened here, what kind of language are you using?
Where by that time most of the time I know the actors so well, I could speak pretty nakedly. Like I could just say exactly like Bradley was talking about, like, hey, the frame is more here. Just be aware of it, the beautiful shots here. Also, Greg Fraser, my DP, all of us are really comfortable. And sometimes I told Greg, I go, you can have them move a little bit. You're allowed to give that direction, like, hey, lower your left hand a little bit, that kind of stuff. So it all gets really familiar. Now, if it's an actor I haven't worked with before, then I'm a lot more cautious. Then I come and I talk to them off to the side. I would never give them a note or a line reading, in front of everyone because I want to make sure they're protected. And I'll just go off to the side and go, hey, try this, and have the conversation privately and then run 2 or 3 more takes. And then as we get comfortable, you can start to open up a little bit as you kind of read the actor. But yeah, it's a tricky thing. It's once you all know each other, once the crew becomes like family with the actors, you can all speak freely. But when those new actors are coming in on that day, I think one of the hardest jobs is being a day player. I think it's really hard. Coming in with those 2 lines you got to hit. I was a terrible actor like 20 years ago, and I would occasionally have like 1 or 2 line parts, and it's awful. You don't get to get into any kind of groove, and I really admire when there's an amazing day player. We'll kind of celebrate it afterwards when they really nail that moment.
And do you do anything to try to make that day player comfortable besides obviously being intimate with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you kick it around. You just let them know they have room to fail. That's always the key.
That's great.
Don't worry about it. We'll just keep going. Hey, try this. Screw with it. Change the line. I'll tell them. I didn't write that line well. Try it like this. You can mess with it. Do a line, whatever you think of. And you just, once you start kicking it back, then they can find some sort of groove. It's when they feel like they're in a phone booth and they have that like tightness to the performance, like they got to hit it in 2 takes, and you just want to avoid that always.
I got you. Alfonso, where do you place yourself? And particularly this movie, where were you? Because I know the camera was yours as well, but where did you place yourself?
I like to be with a small, tiny monitor, and in an Apple box, or standing as close to the camera or as close as possible to the actors. I try to avoid seeing being checking the monitor because I'm interested in reality. The camera is just registering that reality, and also I have this maybe superstition that I said, whatever is in the camera, I'll see many times. I can see many times after, but what is here, I'll only going to experience once in my lifetime. So I try to be part of that, and at least for me, it's very difficult to see actors in the monitor. I like to see the flesh. I like to see.
Yes, aren't you the DP on this film?
This was okay. This is the thing. Now in this one, if I had a static camera that I have checked the frame, I know everything about the frame, then I would do just as always.
But did you operate too?
No.
Just the DP.
No, and I'm not. Galo Olivar is a fantastic operator. I'm not a good operator. So I would be in a there's a lot of shots that are just static, and I would be there. If it was just a simple pan right and left, I would have this time, instead of a small monitor, a bigger monitor, calibrated monitor, and that was the pain, because then I could be switching from watching the action, what I like to do, and then here and there, because also I was looking at the lights as I was looking at the action. So sometimes I would see something, I would just check very quickly. In very long dolly movements, the thing is, and that when I'm not, I have worked with DPs most of my life, but it's very difficult to be running around with your little, because either you look at what happens over there or the monitor, or you just fall, because you have to be running. So for this film, what we did is that we put 2 dollies. One was for the camera, and the other one was for me with a monitor on the side, so I could be looking at both things.
You were riding on the dolly too?
Yeah. In that separate dolly. Okay. That was just before or after the other dolly, for the very long dolly takes.
And when you want to give a note, when you wanted to give a note to your actors, what's your process?
Depends. In this film was very different than the other ones, because as everything was about talking with each actor separately, so the other ones wouldn't know all the different variables that we were going to throw. I would just go and give the specific instruction. I find myself a bit more comfortable with actors rather than sometimes it's practical stuff, and I get it, let's do it a little faster, or just a little faster, or just please don't go into that place, or whatever. But if it's about something about performance, rather than saying I want you more angry, I would tell the grandmother, that that kid reminds you of your ex-husband who was abusive. And then the way that she's going to react to something of the kid is going to be different. That kind of stuff.
Got it. And in essence, you're not asking.
As long as what you're telling is organic to what you understand that the character is,
Yes.
No, it's not inventing things right and left just to try to get a.
But you're not asking, in essence, for the emotion. You're setting something up in that actor, playing that character.
Because I feel that then is something that comes from a deeper place.
Exactly.
It comes from. Is part of the actors. If it's a trained actor, is the understanding of his character. But a trained actor, that understanding of his character is going to be connected with his own emotional life and how he manages
Let me
emotions.
ask you about a very specific scene in performance, which is when she is giving birth.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, there's no cut. And this performance, her performance, I found astounding. How did you set that up? What did you say to her?
Yeah, by that time, because we were shooting in absolute chronological order, the first few days, Yalitza was kind of nervous, and it's really amazing. I mean, the work of Yalitza is amazing because very soon, and before the end of the first week, she understood everything about the movie set. She understood the job of everyone, how the little tricks, the little, we are always doing little tricks in order to achieve things. But also, by week 2, she started understanding building up her character. And it was really amazing to see how she was really creating something that it was completely different than herself. And that was in a very instinctive, but also generous, but super intelligent way of this woman. What we did in that scene is that as we were shooting chronological order, we have gone to the demonstration, then we have gone to the preparation room in labor. And the important thing is every single doctor, every single nurse, every single guy who pushes the stretcher, every single receptionist in the hospital, they are that in real life.
I thought so.
They are the gynecologist, and they do that for living, and they were actually my advisors in the medical advisors and all of that. But it was the same principle. We were shooting in the streets, and if I was going to have a cop, the cop was a cop in real life. There was a need in this film to have certain sense of realism in that sense. And here what we did is that we staged the whole scene without Yalitza by the inch.
Oh.
So, and again, I'm not a gynecologist. I could, I could invent scenes and what happens. And I was just saying, okay, what would happen? Explain me, okay. And then what happens here, okay. And you think that can be, I think is going to be lengthy. You think we can compress that, or would there be a medical procedure that contradict that so we squeeze the scene? Right. You use, and I spent pretty much the whole morning with them. We have already talked about the situation, so they were kind of prepared. And when we were happy with the dynamic, then we were just make sure that we did a pass, but I said, well, let's do a pass just by positions, more or less what you think is going to happen, because I didn't want them to start getting preconceptions and stuff. And we did that with standing. And when we were ready, so Yalitza knew that she was coming from the preparation for labor, and they were going into this room. And And then we just said, okay, you know what's going on? He says, yes, I know I'm going to deliver my baby. And she didn't know what was going to happen.
She did not know that this was going to be a stillborn
No,
baby.
she didn't know. And at the end, she kept on saying, I thought that you were, I'm so used to see how you do tricks that I thought you were going to bring a baby from below the table. I don't know how, she said, but I was sure that you had a baby. And what happened, and it's true, is that because these guys, they do for living exactly that.
Right.
There's kind of like a memory muscle that start operating on them. And they really start getting engaged in the moment. They were really performing that. And actually doing stuff that they haven't done before, you know, taking it very seriously. And Yalitza, she just was living that. But she mentions how the thing is, and there's one scene that I cut out of the film in which the girl is talking about how much she wants to meet the girl. She hopes that it's going to be a little girl, and that how much she wants to meet. And says, I was just, when they told me that the baby was dead, the first thing came to me was Sophie, this girl, saying, I really want her to be a girl, and I want to, you know. And I knew that because I have told already the girl, when in that scene, is that you want her to be a girl, and she doesn't know what it's going to be. And in this scene, she receives the information that it's going to be a girl. So her reaction is, let's take one. I tried to do 3 or 4 more takes. And I have to say, take 2 is amazing. And she's always amazing. But what I didn't get in the other takes was that impact. And even if I show you the 2 takes, you would say, wow, second one could work as well. But there's something about what is reality, what you have to, because the first take, actually, there's some technical stuff that I was not happy about. And it's when you said, well, yeah, but even if in terms of performance, it's almost unnoticeable, the difference.
Right.
One is the real one, you know?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Spike, where do you position yourself?
It depends. A lot depends on location. There's some locations where you can't get up front.
Right.
I try to, you know, sometimes I'm shooting 2 and 3 cameras, so I want to be in front of the monitor and try to have the monitor as close to the actor as possible.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to give notes, what's the process?
Depends.
On the actor, of course, but
Denzel doesn't get notes.
how about his son?
He's not Denzel. Depends who the actor is.
Yeah, of course.
You know, depends who the actor is. So this is simple stuff, you know, I can yell it from the monitor, but there's you know, more subtle stuff is something where you just whisper in the actor's ear. You know, it's not for public consumption because it can be embarrassing. So you never want to embarrass. Because you embarrass actors, you lost them. They're gone. They're gonna phone it in. And I wanted to say earlier about the whole casting thing. I really admire actors because it's a tough business, and they come into the room and, you know, you see in their face that, you know, like, damn, I gotta get this part. And then when you say thank you, you can see the look in their face is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because it's a tough business. And you know what their personal history is, but they need that job. And the rejection the actors have to go through. My man, you know what I'm talking about. How many before you got your first part?
Before the Sex in the City?
Yeah. How many auditions you think you went to?
Oh, I'm sure I've gone thousands.
Thousands?
Yo, yeah. But for things that I would never get. Yeah, because they have castings when you're in New York City, so you're going in for like Armageddon. You're like, you're not gonna get Armageddon. You know what I mean? You know, Pearl Harbor, the Ben Affleck role. It's like, yeah, I was never gonna get that. Yeah,
Spike,
but they have to do those things.
But let me finish though,
go,
please, if I may. It's just you don't get the part again and again and again and again. I have sympathy for actors because they have to put up this rejection.
Yep.
And it's amazing they aren't crazier than they are. But I understand it. To be told. And here's the thing. When you know you're right for that role, but for some other bullshit reason, you're not too small, too large, has nothing to do with the acting. That's the killer when you know that that is, then you see the film like, that's who they chose? And you could be the best you can be, and then you have to understand that it wasn't you. You weren't there looking for, or whatever it is. And so I just give a shout out to the actors. If there any here in the room, because it's tough business. Tough business.
Please, Peter.
One more thing about actors, and this amazes me, and they're not all actors, they have different styles, but there are many actors who want to keep feelings, they want to know how to get them. Like they want to have access to like the moment. Remember the feeling you had when you heard your mom died in that car wreck? Well, they want to be able to get there, and they keep that. And the rest of us, we throw that away. We block that. We bury that stuff. And they keep all these emotions. And that is part of the nuttiness of some actors, is that they've got so much up there that they can draw from to move their emotions all over the place. And I don't have that.
That's why they're there. That's the job.
Yes, that's their job, and I admire them too. And it is the hardest job, I think, on the set is what they're doing. And it is such a hard profession, and it's
Of course, directing is an easy profession, as you're all proving to us how easy. Here's my last question, although I wouldn't mind spending the rest of the afternoon with the five of you because I wouldn't mind it. But here's the question, is when do you know in a take you've got it? So you say, I'm moving on. Spike?
It depends. I mean, there's not just one answer. I mean, are we run out of late? Are we run out of light? All that depends. If you have time, sometimes you're going to have the luxury. But if Maddie Labatique, if Ellen Kuras, if, my DP say, yo, Spike, we lost the light, then that's it. So it is so much stuff is situational. And it's the director's job, I feel, to be adaptable to the moment that you're in. So it's not just like this the way we do it. That's not the way. It's what there's a whole lot of variables that go and that impact the decision you have to make. So you're dancing, if it starts to rain or if something happens, it's like you were saying earlier, there's stuff that we can't control. We can't control, so it's the stuff we control, we gotta handle that business.
Do you do many takes if you have the time? And the actor
And
can?
it's on the actor.
Got it.
Some people, everybody's different.
In this particular movie, did you, because working with, for example,
we
Adam,
didn't
were
have
they
a lot
similar?
of takes. We had to go.
And was there any rehearsal time? I'd love to
We
see.
had 2 weeks rehearsal.
And what happens in rehearsal time for you?
We watch movies. Movies specific to what we're doing. I remember we were doing Inside Man. We watched Dog the Afternoon like 3-4 times.
And in this movie?
We did not watch Bird for Nation.
Or Gone with the Wind.
Nah, we didn't do that. But it again, it's you want to in rehearsal doesn't mean exactly you have to be going over the lines. It was very crucial 2 weeks rehearsal for Adam Driver and John David, to get that vibe. Because if we don't get it there in 2 weeks rehearsal, it's not going to be on the screen. And so it's not necessarily just going to lines, just, hanging out, talking. So you feel each other's energy. Because that's what film is recording. The energy that the actors are giving you. So again, it comes down to preparation. You gotta do the work before we start that first day of principal photography.
Got it. Well spoken, man.
Thank you.
Alfonso, when do you know you have it?
I think it's more the question of what I don't have. What I'm not exploring. And that's and what happens with that is that it's about you feel you have it, but then I just want to make sure that I'm not missing something, there's something that I should explore. And sometimes what happens is after a couple of times that you try to explore things, you realize, no, well, actually, I had it. And I think, as Spike says, it depends on the situation. Sometimes, yes, the light is gone. They kick us out of the location. The actor have to leave. There's so many other elements why. So, but the thing is, it's about that. It's about like this scene in The Bird that you're talking about. I knew I had it from the get-go. It was, and it was not repeatable. But I tried again because, well, I'm a director, so I have to make life difficult for people. Let's do it again a couple of times. And then I realized I'm not going to get anything better. So you said I had it. I'm happy. That scene on the beach, I thought I didn't have it.
Right, Mr. Seth.
Sometimes and you're surprised later on. And actually, so many times you're surprised with stuff that you hated on the set.
Can I just jump into that? Brother man, it's amazing where you see something the next day, you're looking at it like, it's not even like the same thing. Something happened overnight. There's some magic happening. You're like, that's why I really...
Or when you put it in context, you are so happy with some moment, or a moment that you love on the set, then you see in daily, says, what did I like of this? And then you put it in the context of the whole thing and says, oh, good, that kind of works. Okay, this works.
But alone, it doesn't.
Alone, for some reason, even if the thing is when you're directing the moment, you're focusing the moment. When you're looking at dailies, your head, your mind is already in so many things, and you see a bit of film that you say, poof, it's not a big deal.
Got it. I got it. Adam, for you, when do you know you have it?
I think it's that fine line between like a reasonable amount of variations, too many variations, and too few. It's in that sense of, I think early on when I started directing, we got way too many variations. Like we would get different actors, line readings, we would get variations on the shot, we would improvise 4 or 5 different ways the scene could be, and literally the first movie we did, we had enough footage to cut a second movie out of it. That's how much improv we did. And through the years, I think I've gotten smarter about like what realistically is in that pocket, like what's realistically in that key of this scene in this moment in the story. And I think you do get smarter about identifying that. And it's usually a conversation between the actors, the DP, and myself. And there'll usually be that moment where it's like, does anyone else want anything out of this moment? And usually, by that time, the actors are like, I feel good. DP says, I feel good. And then sound will raise their hand and ruin it. You'll have to do one more.
I can see, I know it when I see it, but I will never move on until the actor knows it. Because I don't want my actors lying in bed at night thinking, God damn it, I wish I could have done another take. I could have done better. So I'll always come up to them and say, I love it. You good? And, 90 out of 100, 95 out of 100, yeah, let's go move on. But sometimes I don't feel it. And I'm like, okay, let's do it again. And, usually they get 1 or 2 more and then they'll be done. But I want them to know they couldn't have done any better. They did it the way, and it is generally a very quick thing, unless, you have a scene where somebody's like juggling balls, walking across the room and everything has to be in place. Vigo tells a very funny story. When he was a young actor, he had a very small role on Miami Vice. And he had to be throwing a football with this guy next to him, and they're going as they're walking down the street, and the guy dropped it. He kept screwing the line up, and finally Don Johnson said, "Hey, come on, dude," to Viggo. He said, "Just spit the line out." He says, "This isn't, Hamlet." And Viggo says, "Oh, I know."
Wow.
Yeah. And he said, and Don Johnson, to his credit, cracked a smile and said, "Touché." But it is a feeling of, you know it when you see it, but I want that actor to feel good. And by the way, you raised a really interesting point, Alfonso, about seeing it live. And that is this, it's a really interesting thing. When you are seeing it live, that day, as it's happening, especially this movie where I have like two of the great actors on the planet, Mahershala and Viggo, working together, doing this thing, I felt like, I wish everybody in the world could see what I'm seeing. Well, of course, there's the movie that you can see that, but there's something about that immediacy, that moment. Even now, when I see the movie, I think, oh, I remember that day. God, what a great day. We were driving through the sunshine, and they were doing this thing, and it was just magical. And it's such a beautiful thing to experience firsthand. I sometimes, occasionally, I'll do it. Even when I know we have it, I'll think, I want to see that again. I want them to do it again, just because I'm loving what they're doing, even though it's perfect. I just think, let's do one more. And if it's a great scene. But anyway, that's.
I can see them now both in the rain, and you're saying that repeatedly.
Yeah.
Bradley, when do you think you've got it?
I definitely know when I don't have it. That's the thing. It or not it. It's more like when you're in the groove. It really is rhythm. It's all rhythm, I think, when you're shooting. And there's nothing more exhilarating when there's that synchronicity between the camera and the actors and everything, and it's all grooving. I mean, that's sort of the moment you live for on set. And when that's happening, it's just infectious. Once you get into that groove, it's like you get into that gear, and everybody's in that gear. Then to me, that's when it's not, do we have it? It's, okay, let's see how much we can play in this groove. And that's the thing that I absolutely love. And I was so blessed with the actors that I got to work with that were able to get into that gear, and then let's see where we can drive this thing. And then because of Maddie and Scott Sakamoto and Shelley, the crew that was just able to be so nimble, that's the thrill. And then you're just sort of, you're high off it.
Well,
And when you're not there, you're very aware, because like at band, you're playing and it's not grooving.
well, clearly you all were able to be in that groove and get us in the groove. And you are remarkable filmmakers, and we are all appreciative of what you make and spending this time with us to share how you do it. So thank all five.
Thank you very much.